All right, this video is part 7 in the series. This is called the Planetary World Trees and Nested Realms. All right, there's something I'd like you to think about. And as you know, I've been trying to scale your consciousness up, and I've been trying to do it in baby steps with feather hands. And so I like this picture here because it first will allow you to start to understand how big these trees were. So when we think of how big these trees are, I want you to realize that the branches themselves had continents, oceans, mountains, entire worlds, and not just like one world. These were so humongous that when we were analyzing the information, we thought the smaller branches would have around 1,000 worlds, and the larger branches would have around 10,000 worlds per branch. Just think about how big this is. You could live on the branch of another world and not even know it. You could be living on a branch your whole life and not even know it. Just think about that. You could be living on a tree stump your whole life and not know it. Just think about that. And this is just real quick to give you an idea of how the singularity would work. You have the nested realms. This is supposed to say energy field. It looks like it's in, I don't even know, some kind of crazy language. Anyways, that says energy field, I think. And before the cut, just kind of giving you an idea of how these are nested. Tree stump, nested, then Great Dome, but it would be the 9 heavens, right? When I began tracing the scars of the Earth stump, I kept finding echoes in myth, not just one story, but a chorus from every culture. And the deeper I listened, the more I realized all of them were describing the same thing, the planetary world trees and the nested realms they contained. The Norse spoke of Yggdrasil, the ash tree whose roots wound into underworlds, whose branches arched into heavens, and whose trunk was in the middle realm of men. Babylon remembered the cosmic cedar split and cut by the gods. The Maya told of the Wakachan, the great ceiba tree at the center of the world, its roots in the waters below and its crown in the stars. Egypt carved the Djed pillar, the backbone of Osiris, the world axis. In India, they told of Mount Meru, the pillar of the cosmos. It's the summit in the heavens, its roots in the undersea. Different names, same memory. These weren't poetic trees. They were descriptions of planetary world trees. Each one a realm, each one a pillar that bridged heaven, earth, and underworld. When they stood, they held nested structure of creation intact. When they were cut, their crowns became the basins we live in now. Every world tree was a realm bubble. From the inside, its trunk was the world we walked on. Inside, it nested other layers. Underworld caverns below, middle lands on the surface, heavens above through its branches. From the outside, it was one stump in the cosmic forest, and each tree had its own dome, its own firmament, and its own sky show. And this is a greater one, not after they were, because once it was cut, I'll tell you. This is why myths always speak of 9 worlds, or 7 heavens, or 12 houses. They weren't inventing numbers. They were counting the nested strata within the body of the tree. The layers like bark shells of resonance, each one a level of the realm. So just think about the planetary, with the graph I showed you the other night. The planets are the height of the tree, the different realms going between, each one having its own level. These are the heavens going up, right? So you have this humongous tree, 175,000 miles high, tall, and you have these different realms that we call different things, like Asgard, as you go up the dimensional ladder. But when the tree was cut, something catastrophic happened. The toroidal current, the vertical plasma flow from root to crown, snapped. That current wasn't just energy, it was the scaffolding of the worlds themselves. Without it, every realm perched on a branch lost its tether. Think about how many this is. All right? 175,000 miles tall. Branches with 1,000 to 10,000 worlds on each one. All right? Those all have world trees growing out of them, right? All right? And here's the process. Cut. The trunk scarred, the crown severed. Collapse. The flow stopped, resonance halted. Crystallization. Branch realms harden into sealed bubbles like drops of sap frozen in amber. Nesting, those bubbles fell into lower octaves. Layering like Russian dolls. 5D compressed to 4D. 4D into 3D. Sealing the firmaments locked. Dome snapped shut. The bubbles became isolated. So all these bubbles now are falling down to lower densities, right? They all form crystallize of all these branches everywhere you can think, 175,000 miles up, branches 10,000 worlds each, all domes, all going nested. Remember my nested realms video? That is how the nested realms formed. Not allegory, not metaphor, architecture. Traveling through the nodes. When the great world trees stood, their trunks weren't solid wood. They were living conduits, threaded with veins of light and resonance. Along those veins there were nodes, junctions where currents crossed, like chakras in a body, or like the knots you see in a branch. These nodes were not just structural, they were gateways. At each node, the flow turned inward and outward, opening paths between realms. From the roots, you could move into the underworld waters. From the trunk, you could ascend into the middle realm of men. From the branches, you could step into higher heavens. Travel was not horizontal the way we think of it now. It was vertical. Through the nodes, beings could pass from one octave to another, rising in scale, entering new worlds. The tree was the ladder, and the nodes were the rung. When the trees were cut, those pathways collapsed. The nodes sealed and the realms hardened into bubbles, layered like shells, but the memory remains. And sometimes through vision, trance, or dream, the pathways flicker open. The picture you see here is that truth. A soul moving upward, passing through the node of one branch into another, climbing the tree of creation. It's not fantasy, it's memory. This was the architecture of travel before the cut. And it's the architecture that will open again when the flame rises and the tree is restored. Because back then we weren't bodies of carbon. We were source consciousness wrapped in rainbow fire. We weren't Yadabeus containers. We weren't siphoned shells. We were flames. And in that flame form, we resonated directly with the vertical current. We didn't travel between realms. We touched a note and it lifted us. Up the spine, through the harmonics, one song, one ladder. That's what it meant to live in the fifth dimension. Not someday, not after death, right here. The fifth dimension is here, always has been. But we walk through it now as if blind, trapped in fallen shells, thinking the projection is realer than the flame. The nested realms are the memory of that fall, proof of what was, proof of what was cut, proof of what we can rise into again when we step out of the siphoned shells and ignite the rainbow fire inside us. The scale of loss. And the math makes it undeniable. A real tree branches by fractal law. Each order splits 3 to 4-fold. Each branch is smaller by a half or a third. Scale that to 175,000 miles and you don't get thousands of branches. You get tens of billions, even quadrillions of branches. On the macro scale, the continent-sized limbs, you're still looking at thousands to tens of thousands. Now imagine each branch hosting worlds, rivers, mountains, cities, tens of thousands of realms per branch. 5 million souls in each realm. Run the numbers and you get 50 septillion beings. That's a 5 with 25 zeros. A number so vast it eclipses stars and galaxies. That's how many lives, how many realms were sealed when the tree was cut. And the ancients knew. That's why they spoke of the floods, heavens falling, tongues scattered. When the tree fell, the ladder broke. What had been a flowing current of worlds became a sealed Russian dolls. The higher branches crystallized into heavens. The lower sank into the underworlds. We see them as above and below, but really they are vibrational shells, collapsed into density. But it isn't over. And we'll finish it off here, a little short one in the next video. Have a great night. Namaste.